through some stretches and exercises. So when you sit all day, it is expected that you use less energy than you do when you stand or move. And research has linked sitting for long periods with a number of health concerns. They include obesity and a cluster of conditions, including increased blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, and abnormal cholesterol levels, which all make up the metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is associated with the development of cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes, which are both unfortunately very common in our society. And so some different ideas, we'll get into the exercises and stretches, but just some different ideas to help break up the workday, which will help keep us a little more sane too. But just to get you moving is to take a break from sitting every 30 minutes. So even if it's very brief, you know, try not to wait that extra 5-10 minutes to get up and go to the bathroom. Like if you need to take the time to get up, I guarantee your boss is going to understand. And so getting up for water or just to go to the bathroom, take your dog outside, just get up to walk around and stretch your legs. Try for every 30 minutes. Stand while talking on the phone or watching TV. So not just in the workday, but try and be very aware of how active you are just in your general life. A lot of us, I know, go from our job where we're sitting all day to then into the car where we're sitting and then home where we're sitting. And that just causes a lot of problems, and it's really easily avoidable with some minor lifestyle changes. But just try and stand while you're doing activities that allow it. If you work at a desk, try a standing desk or improvise with a high table or counter, especially if you're working from home right now. Walk with the colleagues for meetings rather than sitting in a conference room, especially in Denver. That should be very easy to get people to commit to. We're all very active. Not all, but a lot, very active. So try and coerce people into getting up and walking around versus just sitting and talking. One that's a little more unrealistic, but another idea is to position your work surface above a treadmill with a computer screen and keyboard on a stand, or apparently there are specialized treadmills for this, but that's a pretty hefty investment. But that allows you to get movement throughout the day if you're not able to go outside, whether it's at work or at home. A big thing to take note of before stretching or exercising is to make sure that your body is warmed up. So getting up and doing just some body weight movements before you start doing any type of stretching and holding it or much exercising is really important. Everything's going to be really cold and tight, and that's where you're likely to overstretch something or to pull something, which we definitely don't want to have happen. We're trying to be better and healthier, not injure ourselves trying to do those things. So I recommend like full body exercises that work your body as a machine, which is how it is supposed to move. So full body exercises, some different ideas, and I will show those, and then I'll show some stretches afterward. Most of us probably know what most of these are, but squats. So coming down as low as you can. You should not feel pain on these. Obviously, you can progress these in lots of different ways, but body weight squats are awesome if that's all we have access to right now. So just coming down, pushing those knees out. We should not feel pain on those. Lunges, you can do walking lunges or just static lunges where we're holding it in the same position, just coming down and back up, primarily loading that front leg on these. So try not to feel like you're on like a carousel coming straight up and down. You definitely want to load that front leg more on those. Walking lunges, I don't recommend forward lunges. It just puts a lot of force on the shins and knees. So if you're going to do them in place, moving to be stepping back is nicer on the knees. Deadlifts, I grabbed some lighter kettlebells to show you, but there's several different types of deadlifts, but I'll just show you traditional or conventional deadlift, which has my knees out of the way, and it's a big hip hinge, so my butt's going back and my back's staying flat. And I want to maintain that neutral spine. That's my favorite lift. So deadlifts are super beneficial. Exercise ball, hamstring curls is another one I have on there. It's one of the big exercise balls, and you're laying on your back and rolling out and back in. So that's helping to strengthen the back of your thighs. Rows, you can do these with suspension straps or weights or bands, but I'll show you with weights. So my back is nice and flat, and my shoulders are down, and I'm bringing those elbows back. You can do a single arm row as well. If your lower back isn't really liking that option, you can brace here or on a box. And then just the same thing, single arm. That gives you a little more support for your lower back. Plank, we probably all know what those are, but I will show you just in case. You can do a high plank and just holding it. You can make them dynamic if you want to get really crazy. And then there's also low plank, which you can do any of these from your knees as well. There's lots of variations of those if you want to get wild and do like crazy burpees and push-ups and all kinds of stuff mixed in with planks. Back extensions, you can do these on a surface that gives you a little bit of a deficit, but you can also do a back extension just from the ground, using your hands for assistance, but trying to primarily use your back muscles to help pull you up. Try not to just push up with your hands, but making sure that the back is really active. You can come up this way too, making it even more full body. Some more Superman. And hip thrusts and push-ups. So you can use a weight or a band for the hip thrusts. You want to make sure that you're coming up, squeezing your butt, but maintaining a neutral spine. So that is not doing this. You don't want to come up on your neck. That's way too much thrusting. So just coming up, squeezing your butt, and all the way back down to the mat. And push-ups, I'm sure we all know what these are too. But trying to get a big range of motion on push-ups. So if you can't do that from your toes, from your knees is fine. Just make sure they're not knees. Much rather it be from your knees with getting nice and low than from your toes and barely bending your elbows. So those are some different exercises I recommend. If you are at a loss for how to put all these together, I have a lot of resources on our website and our blog, and you can also reach out too. So some different stretches, and again, making sure you're warm. So for static stretching, which means just like going into a stretch and holding it, you want to make sure it's at the end of a workout or that you've warmed up properly to do a stretching session if that's all you're doing that day. So hip flexor, focusing on that because as we're sitting, they're constantly flexed. And so we want to be trying to counter that movement. So stretching them this way. And I like to do this one in a dynamic warm-up too, which means it's what I usually do at the beginning of a workout to help warm myself up. So it's one where I'm moving versus just go into it and hold it. But pushing your hips forward, it should be a pretty intense stretch in the hip flexor and probably down into your quad too. And just hold it until you feel a stretch, but if it's dynamic, keep it moving rather than just hold it. Hamstring stretch, another way to make that dynamic. You can lean forward here, going down into it nice and slow. And if you just want a really good hamstring stretch that is static, so one that I would recommend like at the end of a workout, make sure you're sitting up tall and flexing at the hips, not this. That's cheating because you're just wrapping your back. So you want to sit up really nice and tall from those hips and then just come down as far as you can with your back flat. Because this is lessening the stretch in your hamstrings, even though it looks like you can lean down further. And good quad stretch. Unless you have really good mobility, where like really good flexibility, where you can do one here, where you're pulling your foot in this way. A really good one that's gonna make it a bit easier is here, and just try and drive that knee down to the ground. You can also grab a band and loop the band around your foot and hold it over your shoulder if you can't reach your foot comfortably. And you want to try and drive that knee down to the ground rather than letting it come out to the side. IT bands, I usually recommend rolling these. I find that to be a lot more effective than trying to stretch them, but you can tuck a foot behind, leaning over to the side and stretching it a little bit. But I find that like foam rolling is much more effective at relieving tension that I'll have there. But one of my favorite stretches for IT band, glutes, lower back, and piriformis is this particular stretch. And it's really intense. So I think it's called a log pose in yoga. You're trying to get your shins stacked right on top of each other. And then again, sitting up really tall and flexing at the hips, so you're lengthening the spine, and then try and walk yourself forward. Again, try not to just round and collapse, because that's gonna lessen the stretch. But try and sit up tall and then come down from the hips. If that one is way too intense, you can also do this one where you're laying back and I'm putting my arms through my legs and grabbing the leg that's up and pulling it in toward me, and I'm pushing against my knee to open up my hips even more. So that's gonna help to stretch the same things. It's just not quite as intense as the like crisscross position where your legs are stacked on top of each other. And a few upper body ones. I primarily focused on lower body, since I know our physical therapists are doing a lot of different upper body stretches to help us out. But a good chest stretch. And use a broomstick or a band or a dowel rod if you have one, but keeping your arms straight. So if you need to scooch them a little wider, if you're on a broomstick, we just don't want to see this happening, okay? So try and keep them straight. So as wide as you need to go to make that happen with still feeling a good stretch is the goal. And for this dynamic one, you're coming all the way from your pelvis around to your butt, and straight in this direction. You can also do one with the wall. Or a door frame. You can just walk into a door frame and walk forward. You'll stretch your chest. But you can also have your hand straight out from your shoulder, and I'm applying pressure into the wall, and then I'm rotating my body away. But it's going to make it more intense if you put pressure through your hand into the wall to really stretch all the way through your chest and front of your shoulders. And then traps and like neck area. One of my favorite ones is to lightly pull my head to the side, and then I'm reaching this hand to the ground. So keeping it active the whole time. And then I'll hold that for about 15 seconds. And then the same thing, but I'm just tilting my chin down. And I'll do that on both sides. And again, if you need help figuring out how to fit all these together, or what way you want to organize it all, you can reach out to me, or like I said, there's lots of resources on our blog too. But that is all I have today. So thank you guys for your time. I hope that was helpful. If there are more questions, you can put them in the chat or ask me later, and I'll be happy to answer.
Awesome. Thank you, MJ. All right. Who would like to go next? Danielle?
Yes.
Perfect.
Hello. Thanks, MJ. Good exercises to do on a regular basis, which I should do more of. First of all, I'm Danielle Rodman, and I'm a physical therapist, and my partner, Sarah Peck, and I, who's on the call as well, we own Trifecta Physical Therapy in Littleton. And today, am I still on? Oh, thank you. Sarah just put up the PowerPoint, which I don't know what you guys can see. But we're going to be talking about kind of how to manage neck pain and headaches coming from the neck from home. So just tips to kind of give you that you can easily do just from your home office. We thought this was pretty relevant because everybody is working from home right now and you're spending a lot more time probably on your computer or on your phone. Most of us don't have proper homework setups that are ergonomically correct. So hopefully we can give you guys some tips for that. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I'm getting used to this PowerPoint. So first, just some anatomy about the neck. We have the head, the cranium, which sits on top of our cervical spine, which is made up of 7 cervical vertebrae. And then it's further broken up into the upper cervical spine and then the mid-cervical spine. So the upper cervical spine is really where I'm going to be focusing because this is where we see a lot of dysfunction. A lot of our movement comes from the upper cervical spine, especially rotation. The muscles of the the subcranial spine also, they help to kind of balance our big old head. So our head weighs about 10 pounds. So if you can imagine 10 pounds sitting directly over our spine isn't too bad, but then if you end up in this forward head posture, that 10 pounds gets a lot heavier. Just like if you were to, oh dear, sorry. If you were to think about carrying like a gallon of milk, if you carry it right next to your chest, it's not too bad. If you were to hold that gallon of milk out even about a foot, it would get really heavy pretty quick. So same thing with our head. If our head is forward, it's a lot of work for those tiny little muscles. And they become dysfunctional and painful after a while. So let's see. How do I get back? So one thing I didn't really talk about last time was this angle between the bottom of the head and the top of the neck. So that angle is what they use to measure when they're studying the effects of posture on your neck pain. And they have found that basically in all kinds of groups, especially adult populations, of course, kids don't get too affected by this, but especially in adult populations, the smaller the angle, so the further extended that head is, the tighter these muscles are and the more pain you have. But the good news is that studies have also shown that a good exercise program can kind of combat that. So that's what we're here to talk about with you today. So with the home computer situation, if you are sitting at your home computer, as soon as you lift your arms up onto that computer keyboard, everything kind of rounds forward. So your shoulders round forward, your thoracic spine rounds forward, and then with that thoracic spine rounding forward, your head falls forward. So our natural tendency, because we want to be able to see our screen, is we end up extending our head so that we can see. And then we sit like that all day long. Same thing with a cell phone. I put a picture up of this kind of cartoon skeleton person on the cell phone. That's one I don't really pay attention to a whole lot. I'm better when I'm sitting at a computer, but when I'm just texting, I end up with a lot of neck pain because I end up extending my head like that. So I know I'm kind of driving the point home there. But today I wanted to show you my little towel stretches. So these are really easy to do. You can keep a towel or a pillowcase next to your home desk and kind of do them as you need. There we go. So I took a pillowcase and I'm going to fold it up into, I don't know, it's about 4 inches or so wide. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take that top edge and I put it at kind of the base of my head or the top of my neck. You can also do this lower down in the spine if you're having more pain kind of in that mid-cervical spine. The same exercises can apply to that area as well. But like I said, a lot of times the dysfunction is up higher. So all you do is you take that top edge of the towel, you kind of rest it in there, and then you're just going to pull forward with the ends of the towel or pillowcase. I'm pulling forward with my hands, providing a little pressure there, and then I'm just going to retract my head straight back. So it's kind of like I'm giving myself a double chin. It's not head flexion, okay? It's straight back, okay? And then while I'm providing that forward force with the towel. For all of these, I have people hold for about 3 seconds. I have people do about 6 repetitions, and it's a guideline if you know, give or take a few reps here and there. This is an awesome one for headaches and an awesome one to kind of combat that extended head position. Another one you can do, this one's really nice. I feel like if you have been sitting one position for a long time and you just need to kind of move and stretch, I usually place the towel a little bit lower, and then I'll just look up towards the ceiling, but I'm supporting my neck with that towel. So it feels kind of nice, just like that, and just go nice and slow up and down. Let's see, the next one is for rotation. This one is awesome, especially if you're having just a lot of stiffness in the neck. Again, that upper cervical spine, 50% of our rotation comes from your C1, C2 joints. So I place the top of the towel right at that level, so which is me right below, kind of right where my head dips in, okay? And then I'm gonna go into the restriction. So let's say I'm having trouble rotating my head to the right and it hurts. I'm gonna do this for right rotation. So for that, I would hold my towel. I'm gonna cross my arms. So I hold the right tail of the towel with my left hand, and I'm just gonna hold it there and stabilize that side. And with my right hand, I'm gonna take the left tail of the towel, and I'm gonna use it to help me turn my head to the right. So I'm going to actively turn my head to the right, and I'm gonna pull the towel along with it, and then just hold for about 3 seconds, and then relax. So vice versa, if I had left-sided pain, I would cross my hands, hold that left side down, and then I would rotate to the left. Okay. On that one, also the towel is kind of, I'm giving myself a little overpressure, like over my, kind of my chin area. Be careful if you have any jaw pain, but that gives it a little bit of extra stretch as well. And then the last of the towel stretches is a little bit of traction. So this one's awesome. Hopefully you're not having numbness and tingling as you're sitting at your desk, but if you are, sometimes this can help just kind of unload those joints a bit. So you're gonna hook that towel again just underneath the head, and then I'm gonna angle my towel about 45 degrees up and just pull with both hands and just give myself a little bit of nice traction there. If you're having pain more on the right side versus the left, you can bias it. So let's say my pain was more on the right. What I'm gonna do is pull a little bit harder on that right tail. So you kind of pull up, and that's gonna force my head into just a little bit of side bend and a little bit of rotation to the left. And it's gonna help to unload those joints on the right. And then vice versa. If I have left-sided pain, just pull a little bit more with that left side. And you should feel a nice stretch. All of these should not be painful. That's the number one rule. They should not hurt. It should feel like a stretch. It should feel really good. So if you're having pain, don't do them, of course. But they can be really helpful in just getting you a little bit of extra range of motion and sometimes taking care of that headache, in addition to what Sarah, my partner, is going to share with you as well. So I will hand it off to her. And if you have questions about these towel stretches, I did a video of them on our website, so you can go to our blog area and find them there. So go ahead, Sarah.
Great, thanks, Danielle. So like Danielle said, my name is Sarah. I am also a physical therapist. I've been practicing for about 12 years now in a bunch of different settings. But one of the settings I've worked in the past is workers' comp. So we did a lot of talking on workplace setup and ergonomics and repetitive type injuries. So that's what I'm going to kind of cover for you all today and talk about some ways to prevent them, as well as also some ways to recognize them, and then some stretches that you can do at home to help either prevent or relieve some of the discomfort that you might be having. More with like a sitting type of job. Obviously, you can get repetitive and ergonomic type injuries at other jobs as well versus just a sitting job. That's kind of what we're covering today. Talking on a more dynamic job type of injury is like a whole other talk. So making sure that you can self-assess where your body is in space is kind of like the first step, so that you know when you are having pain, kind of recognizing this is where the pain is coming from, And this is possibly some of the repetitions or causes of that pain. Some people might not know what ergonomics is. Ergonomics is just within your office setting is seeking to optimize human performance by setting up and utilizing the equipment that you have and that you use on a daily basis. Some of the type of ergonomic injuries that we can see are repetitive motion type injuries, awkward postures resulting in an injury, or contact stress, which is one that most people probably don't think of when you're thinking about an injury. But if you are sitting and you have your arm or elbow resting on a surface that isn't at the right height for you, and there's a lot of pressure through there, that can cause some inflammation through that area and cause pain as well for you. So that causes some micro trauma to the tissue. Another thing to kind of take into consideration when you're talking about ergonomics is your prior fitness level. So your current fitness level can also play into it, or if you have a pre-existing condition such as arthritis or diabetes or cardiovascular disease, that can all play into how well your body responds to what you're having to do on a daily basis as well. So like MJ was saying, the more fit you are, overall, the better that you're going to be on a day-to-day basis. So exercising on a daily and moving and getting those stretches in is super important. Some types of injuries that we're going to kind of talk about today that are possible with your workspace setup is tendonitis, which is just an inflammation of the tendon. Tendon goes from your muscle to your bone. And that's probably one of the most common type of injuries. It's some inflammation. A repetitive strain injury, which most people associate with like carpal tunnel type of symptoms, where you can get some numbness and tingling, but also some pain. But you can also have, repetitive type injury in your elbow or some of your other joints as well. Muscle spasms and tightness, a lot of people will talk about that like through their upper traps or their shoulders or their neck. It just hurts all the time because that's just where you carry your stress, or that's just how you sit at your desk. And you can do things to help prevent some of that. And then bursitis, which is an inflammation of the fluid-filled sac that sits around your joint. And then joint stiffness, which can be coming from a couple of different areas. Maybe you have arthritis, or you just have some stiffness through there because you're not utilizing it. In PT, we like to say motion is lotion. So making sure that you are moving those joints and using those joints as frequently as possible, because that helps keep everything moving better. And then also you can have some nerve compression, which causes pain and tightness and numbness and tingling along a specific pathway through the body. So let's talk about kind of office spaces and desk setup. What's an optimal sitting position? I am going to share my screen again here. I have some pictures that will help everyone kind of visualize that a little bit. So optimal sitting position, obviously having a good chair is kind of where we're going to start, right? If you don't have a good chair or a good sitting area, you're just going to kind of fail from the start. If you're trying to work on the couch or work in bed, it's just not really a great idea. We can't sit well in those types of positions. It's fine for a short period of time or just a break from your desk, but if you're planning on working like your whole day in those types of positions, it's not going to work super well. So finding an area, whether it's a kitchen table, a desk, just an area that you can get a chair and a table and kind of navigate things to work best for you. So making sure that your back is sitting up straight, having some sort of lumbar support is also helpful. You want 90 to 110 degrees bend at your hip, 90 to 110 degrees bend at your knee, straight head and neck, relaxed shoulders, about a 90 or so degree bend at the elbow. And then you want your wrists to be straight. And when we're talking straight, when you're typing, I don't want you to be kind of cocked up like this or cocked back like this. So trying to have a pretty neutral wrist, and then feet flat on the floor or some sort of step. Some people, they might not have super long legs. And so having a step or some sort of box or something underneath of their desk so that their feet can be flat. Because if your feet are dangling you're just, again, not going to be in optimal position. You're going to have a tendency to want to cross your legs or cross your ankles, which is fine, again, to change position throughout the day, but it's not great if you're there for long periods of time. So even with all of this, if you have 100% perfect setup at your desk, you still need to change your positions, as MJ was saying, throughout your day. Every 30 minutes would be ideal. If you can't do every 30 minutes, at least once every hour. Get up, change position, go to the bathroom, get some water, do some sort of different type of movement, because after you stay in that position for longer than 60 minutes, things just start to get really stiff, and then that can kind of snowball into some other issues. Some other things to consider when we're looking at workspace is making sure that you maintain a neutral reach zone. So if you have items that you are reaching for, whether it's a phone, your mouse, anything on your desk, pens, things like that, try to keep them relatively close so that you're not having to lean forward or reach or get in an awkward position every time that you need that item. Items that you don't use as frequently, take them off of your desk. 1, they're a distraction, and 2, they clutter your desk, and 3, it's good to, again, get up and move. So if you have an item that you only use once or twice a day, move it off of your desk so that when you do have to use it, you can get up. Your computer monitor. Now, this is a hard one for a lot of people because I know lots of people have multiple computer monitors. Not everyone, but if you have more than one, making sure that the monitor that you use the most is the one that is centered in front of you, and then the other one is close, so that when you are moving, it's a very short motion with your head, or hopefully maybe just a motion with your eyes from side to side. If you use them equally, trying to center yourself in between 2 of them can help as well. Most people have one that they use more than others, so try to use that as your main monitor. Making sure that your chair is directly in front of the computer, positioning your computer arm's length away. So if you're sitting and your monitor, reaching your arm out and having that computer within that arm's reach. And then making your computer so that you are looking at the top third. If you have your computer too high, you're going to tip your head back and look forward. And if you are sitting much higher than your computer, which happens frequently with laptops, you're going to have a tendency to want to nod down to look at that, which can also be irritating and not keep you in that neutral position. Your keyboard should be directly in front of you. Again, that can be difficult with a laptop. So making sure that you adjust accordingly as best as you can. Sometimes not everything's ideal, but let's try and get it as best as we can. The biggest thing I would say is people's mouse. When you use a mouse, a lot of times we position it kind of far away from ourselves, and we need to bring it closer to the edge of the surface that we're working on, so the edge of the desk or the edge of the table, so that we're not reaching way out far and extending our elbows and then mousing out through here. We want to make sure that it's close, that you can still keep that elbow at a close to 90-degree angle while you're using it. Give you a little different view here. This kind of hits some different points on this slide here. There's different types of keyboards. Having a split keyboard, those are suited better for a larger person, those with wider hands and larger shoulders. If you are an average size person, a traditional keyboard is fine and will work well. A mouse, we kind of talked about that already. You can also get the mouse with the roller ball on the top, which is fine. It's really just more of a preference for yourself. When you're talking about workstations, having like a document holder is helpful if you're having to type off of paper frequently. When you have a phone, don't cradle the phone like this between your shoulder and your ear. That obviously is not a great position. And having a headset to wear is best if you're on the phone frequently throughout the day. And then adjustable workspaces. If you can have a workspace that lets you stand and sit throughout the day, that's ideal as well, because that can help you take breaks and change your position. Here are some stretches that help with neck and kind of upper shoulder and some arm tension that you can get with working at a computer. You can see our website there. At the top, there is a blog post on all of these stretches on our blog section of our website with instructions and details on how long to hold, reps and counts and all of that great stuff. So if you are interested in these stretches, please visit our website, and all that information is there for you. But these are great to do actually a couple times throughout your day to help kind of take those micro breaks. You don't have to do them all at once. If you did one every hour throughout your workday, that would be fantastic. So that is all I have, and thank you so much.
Awesome. So my name is Taylor Ferguson, and I am a chiropractor. The name of my practice is Function First Chiropractic. I'm going to go ahead and paste all of my contact info into the chat for you. Great. So everything so far has been awesome. Thanks everybody for putting that together. I love the stretches that you did, MJ, and I love those towel stretches for neck pain and neck relief too. Those are awesome. My neck is definitely starting to feel this at-home work. I was going to say, I'm going to show you some things during this presentation. I'm a little embarrassed, but as a chiropractor, I'm pretty much in my office working with people one-on-one. So my home office is like not ergonomically appropriate because I'm never in it and it doesn't really exist. So I apologize. Don't look at my office as an example by any means. But anyway, so I wanted to add a couple things. Primarily what's been focused on so far has been neck pain and like headaches and upper shoulder discomfort. And I wanted to add that for some people, sitting all day and looking at a computer is really neck stressing on the neck and the upper back. But for other people, I think you're starting to feel it maybe in like your knees and your lower back as well. So I wanted to just add a couple quick things in that respect. When you're looking at a chair that you want to have at your office, you want to have something that has a full back in the bottom part, nothing that has like a cutout in it, because then you'll tend to slouch right through that opening. So the chair that I have has kind of a full back, but at least doesn't allow me to slouch through a full opening. The other thing is sitting up all day is an active position. That's why it's really hard. That's why we end up in a slouched position. So there is a little bit of a cheat mechanism that I give people, again, with a towel. So I've taken just a bath towel or a beach towel and I folded it long ways first and then rolled it up, kind of like a hot dog. So if you take that and you place it, let's see, how can I make this exactly visible? You want to keep the top of your belt line kind of against the chair while you're putting this in place. And then you're going to stuff the towel down in right at the top of your belt line, or like the top of your sacrum. This will passively give you a little bit more of some back support that helps you sit up. Sorry if I'm making anyone seasick. Helps you sit up nice and tall without necessarily having to like think about engaging your core and think about keeping yourself tall all throughout your day. Because if you did have to think about that, the next phone call or email you answered would easily distract you, and then you wouldn't think about it anymore and you'd be right back to slouching. So putting a towel in your against the back of your chair into your lower back, kind of like the lumbar support in your car, can be really helpful for alleviating some of the pressure that people are feeling in their lower back. Also, some of those quad stretches that MJ was showing, whether you're down on your knees and reaching for your leg behind you, or you're standing on the wall and reaching for your leg, those are great for opening up the hip flexors and the quads, which, like she said, when you're sitting are getting really tight, which can also cause some pain into your lower back. So just a couple quick tips there, but then I'm going to move kind of in the bulk of my presentation, which is going to be mostly focusing on diaphragmatic breathing. And the reason that I chose this topic is because, one, it's not something that everybody hears all the time, or you're not inundated with information about it on social media, so I thought it might be interesting. And then two, it's a great way to kind of start to train yourself and support yourself by taking pressure off of your lower back, but also taking pressure and activity levels off of your accessory breathing muscles, such as your traps and your neck muscles, so that you can help with your head position as well. And then lastly, working through some breathing exercises can be really helpful for reducing anxiety. And I know depending on the day, I've heard from a lot of people, you're kind of going up and down. Sometimes you're having a great day and sometimes you're like feeling really unproductive and don't know when this is going to be end, and feeling really anxious about what the world is going to look like when it does end. So it can help with that as well. So I find it to be a really dynamic and multifaceted tool, and I teach a lot of people about it in my office. So it used to be diaphragmatic breathing, that is, used to be something that we would do innately. If you watch a baby breathe, especially if they're in that kind of like happy baby yoga position where they're on their back, you can really see their bellies start to rise as they inhale and then fall as they exhale. So it used to be something that we did kind of innately. And then depending on how we have developed and the lifestyle that life has handed us, we've kind of lost that skill. So that old adage, like if you don't use it, you lose it, is a little bit true in this instance. And reasons why people lose it is primarily positionally related. So if we're sitting, like we were talking about, and you're either in this position where you're like really rounded forward and dumped back, like this, then you are cutting off access into your belly, so you won't be able to tap into those muscles to help you breathe as much. And then vice versa, I'm going to take out my back support. But vice versa, if you're sitting in this position where you're like really arched in your lower back, now we're really flared through here and you can't quite tap into that, those core muscles either. You kind of want to be in an ideal position, which I'll talk about a little bit more in depth later. And then also, you know, when people are stressed, they tend to kind of like shrug their shoulders or lean forward or get really compressed and tight in whatever they're working on, whether you realize it or not. And that starts to turn on those accessory breathing muscles, which then takes over for the diaphragm. So it's harder for you to kind of do proper breathing in those instances. And then I think we have a lot of women on this call, and I know MJ, you work with women specifically, but you know, aesthetically, women are frequently trying to be thinner or cautious of kind of like how they're presenting themselves. So you tend to suck in your belly or your gut when you're standing up or sitting down, and that automatically turns off your diaphragm and you're not able to use it for breathing. So those are just a couple of reasons why you're no longer doing this, even though you used to do it without even thinking about it as a kid. So what happens is, I've mentioned it a couple times, but your diaphragm is a circular muscle that sits kind of like a dome at the base of your rib cage. And then it's domed like this up into the area where your lungs sit. So as you breathe in, if you're using your diaphragm, that dome will lower and then it creates negative pressure. So it's actually pulling air into your lungs instead of you actively trying to fill your lungs as much as possible. So it's more of a passive process. And then in doing so, it brings your diaphragm down into your abdominal cavity instead of just sitting in your thoracic cavity. And that automatically triggers your transverse abdominis to kind of lengthen and eccentrically engage. And that transverse abdominis originates on your spine, and then it wraps around to the front of your belly with the rest of your abdominal muscles. So it's kind of like an internal weight belt, if you know what a weight belt is, or if you were to just think of a belt of any kind, it wraps around basically from your spine and then kind of fastens in the front. And the muscle fibers all run horizontally, which is unique to that abdominal muscle as opposed to the other muscles. So as you're breathing with your diaphragm, you start to pull on that muscle and create more tension as you fill out your lungs with air. And because it originates on the spine, that causes your spine to kind of straighten. It'll take that curve out of your spine and it gives it a lot of support, which is why this is helpful in treating lower back pain and also preventing lower back pain. So like I said, it helps kind of give stability to the back, but then also, as I've kind of already mentioned, if you're not using those accessory muscles, you're using your diaphragm instead, then that's going to kind of keep tension out of your neck and shoulders so that you don't have this like chest breathing happening as you're breathing more using those types of muscles. And then it's a slower process. So pulling that air in negatively takes longer than taking a shallow, active breath in, which will automatically slow down your respiratory rate. It also slows down your heart rate, which is how we can start to deal with anxiety with this technique as well. So it's super multifaceted, really, really helpful. Pretty much anyone can benefit from learning about this. So now I kind of want to use this time to get you guys to be a little active and participate and kind of feel what I'm talking about. So like I said, you want to sit in this upright position. So if you think about the bottom of your rib cage as a circle and then the top of your pelvis as a circle, you want those two circles to be parallel. So I had a water bottle at one point, but I don't have it anymore. But if we were to think of this towel kind of as like a soda can whatever you kind of beverage you like coming out of a can. The bottom is going to be the hole or the circle that's at the top of your pelvis, and then this circle is going to be the circle that's at the bottom of your rib cage. And you want those to sit parallel over one another. So when you're sitting up, try to think of those things as being sitting over one another or parallel to one another. You don't want to have your back too arched, and you don't want to have your self rolled too far forward. So kind of find that position. And then from there, I want you to place just one hand on your chest and then one hand on your belly. So my other hand is just resting here, kind of around my belly button. And then just take 3-5 normal breaths in. Don't think anything about it. Don't try to engage any differently. And just kind of notice to yourself which hand is moving. I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. So if this isn't a technique that you're familiar with or something that you've been trained on, you're probably noticing that that top hand is moving a little bit more, which indicates that you're using those chest muscles. And this is where you can really benefit to try to kind of retrain yourself. So I usually teach this laying down. So if you'd like to lay down, if you're more comfortable, feel free. If you would like to sit up, just make sure that you keep that rib cage over your pelvis. If you are laying down, putting your feet flat on the floor so that your knees are bent. I think MJ is going to show that now. That will help you get to that neutral position where your pelvis and your ribs are still parallel, even in a supine position as opposed to a seated position. So from there, either leave your hands where they are, or I suggest placing your hands around near kind of your hip bones at the top of your pelvis, just so that you have your fingers in the front, you can feel your palms against your sides, and then you can feel your thumbs on the back. So this will be our first concentrated breath. So on your next breath in, I want you to think about breathing horizontally if you're seated, vertically if you're laying down, but you want to think about breathing into your hands so that your fingers and your thumbs are able to separate from one another. So you should feel that breath kind of pushing them apart, and then also filling up left to right so that your hands are even getting a little bit wider as you breathe in. Almost like you're filling up a balloon inside your stomach in 360 degrees. Focusing like that will shift you from being a chest breather to being more of engaging your diaphragm. So this is super conscious and obviously not something that you're going to be able to do throughout your daily life without thinking about it. But this is a really good practice to kind of start tapping into your diaphragm, reconnecting your brain to that area, and helping you learn to breathe correctly. So this is harder than it seems. So if you're having trouble doing this at all or feeling it at all, that's totally normal. It does take a little bit of practice. And that's something that I help with in my office all the time, or we could do like a telehealth session where I could spend a little bit more time with you individually and help make sure you're feeling this exactly as you're supposed to. Also, if this is really easy for you because you're used to this, you maybe were a singer at some point, or you've been trained on this technique before, there are other ways that we can progress it and make it more challenging. So we can, put you into more of a dead bug position where both your arms and your legs are elevated and you're still having to maintain that active breathing. So there's a lot of ways that we can kind of take it and apply it to whatever your activities of daily living demand, and also help you keep working on this so that it becomes more innate to you, so that you're not struggling with it as much every time you're having to think about it as much. But in the meantime, if it's something that you were able to kind of feel and get a feel for during this call, what I typically recommend to people is that you start out with setting a timer and doing this about 2 times a day, and set your timer for 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, and just breathe during that time. Fill your belly up with air, push your fingers and thumbs apart. But the more you practice it, the more it will become something that you can do innately, whether you're just sitting in your car and you don't even kind of realize it, but if the more present you are, you might feel that you're kind of filling up into your belly as opposed to your lungs. And that's kind of how I recommend people go about it. If we're talking from like a rehab perspective or trying to learn this to help with back pain and neck pain specifically. But if you're trying to pair it more intentionally to help you manage your anxiety, I don't know if you're familiar with box breathing, but it's the idea of like breathing as if you're creating a box. I'm all about creating shapes, whether it's a balloon in your belly or a box with your breath. I don't know. But if you think about it, you want to try to breathe in for a count of 4 and then hold for a count of 4, and then exhale for a count of 4 and then hold for a count of 4 before refilling. That's called box breathing, kind of completing the squares of a box. It's a really good anxiety tool and breathing tool. So you can pair this breathing technique with that breathing methodology and kind of get the biggest bang for your buck out of using both of them. I will say, if this is something you're new to, holding your breath for 4, both at the top and at the bottom before you refill and also after you have filled, can be really, really challenging. So it might be more of like a 2-sided box where you're just trying to breathe in for 4 and then exhale for 4. Either way, you'll really slow down your breath, and you'll notice that you kind of switch yourself over to that parasympathetic state, which is the goal, to kind of take you out of that fight or flight scenario. But that's kind of all I have prepared for you today. I hope it was interesting and maybe a little bit different than what you've heard or seen. I do post a lot of educational videos, mostly on my social media. So if you're into that kind of thing, I've posted my handle in the chat. So feel free to take a look, give me a follow, reach out if you have questions. If you want to learn more about this breathing technique, feel free to either call, email, or message over social media. And I'm really excited. I think I'm going to be able to start seeing patients in office next week. I don't know if the PTs are feeling that as well, but I hope everyone enjoyed our presentation. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. I tell you what, I feel like so many times I don't breathe at all. Like when I'm concentrating on the computer and then all of a sudden I'm like, I need to breathe. So that's extremely helpful. Just doing those exercises right now, like I feel more relaxed and connected. So thank you. Does anybody have any questions for any of the presenters that they didn't go over? If not, then you guys are dismissed. Thank you so much. This was awesome. Really appreciate you taking the time. You guys go on, friend them on social media. Let's give some love and support for our local businesses. Thank you from the South Metro Denver Chamber for being such awesome members. And let's keep these going. If you guys have any more ideas, anything you want to share with our members, we are happy to get these set up with you. I have my email address on the chat. I'm Christy with the Chamber, and we'd love to help you guys get more business and more support throughout the next few months. So thanks again. And if nobody
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see, we have one new message here. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Have a great evening. We appreciate you, and we'll be in touch soon.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This was fun. I hope we get to continue, and I hope everyone appreciates my super professional background. I'm actually a child, so. But I waited until the end so no one would laugh during anyone's presentation.
It looks so realistic. That's hilarious.
Right? Yeah, they're pretty good. I figured them out with one of my younger clients yesterday, and so now I just can't stop.
That's the key, is the young kids. They know,
Oh, yeah.
what to do. And
yes.
I record this video, so I'll send it to the presenters, and you guys can put it on your social media or do what you wish. So,
thank you, ladies. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Do we want to do, are you guys,
Yeah.
what do you guys think?
Yeah, we can do a quick picture.
Okay, MJ ran away.
Oh.
Hold on, my phone may have died also. No, we're good to